Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, United 96 here on the RFQ Refugees podcast. Ted here, John here. Um,
We got a
Yeah.
we got a quick 25-minute show for you here, doing roster decisions, breakdown for 2022, looking at the players who are still on this roster, if we want to keep them, if we want to get rid of them, and then that's it. And then that'll be the last DC United show for the 2022 offseason because there's nothing left to talk about unless something crazy happens. So this happened on a fortuitous time because the MLS Players Union also gave us their salary guide, their updated guide. So now we know exactly how much all the new signings are making, and that sort of helps us sort of decide where a player should be if they're on the roster or not for next year. So sparing no time, let's get started right away. Matai Akambone, the 15-year-old signee from the academy. I assume that's going to be a keep, right?
Obviously. Yeah. I mean, he's the new academy signing. So
he is a new academy signing, meaning he makes like $5. So that's another reason to do it.
He had one, I'd say, semi decent game. But also one not so great game.
making $75K. That's a guy you're going to keep. Tony Alfaro has an option this year. Last year made $89,513. Very specific, exact number. He was able to negotiate. Keep or get rid of.
Oh, Alfaro, yeah, gone. Bye.
Gone. Yeah. I would agree.
No option exercise there.
Nope. Christian Benteke, an interesting one, making $4.14 million, $182,000 for a full season with DC United. Obviously, he's not going anywhere next year. So he's not much of a keep or get rid of conversation. But I think we can talk about for a second what does he have to do on a club that spends more money now, and we'll talk about this sort of as a theme. A club that is spending money on marquee players. What does he have to do in the field to justify that sort of dollar tag?
I mean, this team has to figure out this team. I think what we learned from this year. I think he still can be a decent finisher. He had opportunities in front of the net. I think it was a weird year overall for him. I'm pretty sure like he only really appeared in like the final like 4 or 5 games of the year. I think that's right. Like, I mean, his visa process took forever. Like from when he was announced to when he actually played.
He missed about a month of games, I think. If I recall correctly.
It was an odd time for him to come in, all around odd, I guess is the way I can describe sort of how he came into this game, to this team. The team was dead in the water pretty much. I think by the time he took the field, like playoffs were gone. There was no hope. I think what we learned is that from a on the ball skill perspective, he leaves a little bit to be desired. I don't know if it was rust. He didn't play a whole lot, but this team I think has to figure out a way to get him the ball and to get him into spots where he can do that one-time finish. He can be that kind of physical fox in the box type player. Honestly, if they are relying on him to drop back, to hold up the ball, I think this team is going to be in big trouble. He can play the one-time pass and maybe make a run, but he's not going to be a guy who's going to dribble on the ball clearly because he looked really bad.
It's a struggle too, right? Because he is great at hold-up play. So, in a universe where you're a Premier League team and $4 million is a pittance to you, like he would be a great second striker to somebody. Like he could do that, but instead, DC United is going to have to spend money on service guys, on guys that can get in the ball. Right now, they don't really have any, and we'll get through this roster. It's like that's not the strength of this team at the moment, really, the way it's constructed. Miguel Berry. Interesting, $120,000 and has an option year. He was acquired from Columbus Crew for a very small amount of GAM. Not very. I think it was like 200,000. So it was not nothing. What do you? I would say, based on the review that we did of this season and sort of our eye test, Miguel Berry is leaving something to be desired from my perspective. What do you think? Keep or get rid of?
To be honest, yeah, I'm gonna go with get rid of. I think he did not do enough. I'm hesitant on a lot of these players. Some of these guys that particularly came here in the summer, whether to give the final grade on him. But I mean, I expected a little bit more from him. I don't think he had a single goal, if I remember correctly.
Nope,
no goals. So in my mind, yeah, I don't think he's going to be back. And it's a shame because he had some good moments for Columbus. I mean, there was a lot of talk about him being the premier striker for Columbus.
Yeah, and not so. Yeah, I say also get rid of. He would be like the fourth striker on the roster, but still, why even mess with it? Let's not even play around with it. Steve Birnbaum, $750,000. His contract is not up. He's got another guaranteed year. Certainly had an uneven year. Scored 2 goals. Had a red card. I remember. Now I get to know of it. I have a very unique, or not unique, a explicit remembrance of it now. I would say. I would like to get rid of him, but I think you're gonna have to keep him. That's a lot of money to eat. Or you got to find somebody else that's willing to take that contract on.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe your option here is if you get rid of him, you're not going to be able to get rid of the whole contract.
Right.
I think
that's true.
you could find a team that would be willing to eat a certain portion of that contract because I think he still brings a lot of MLS experience. My projection is he will be left unprotected. Well, I guess actually DC's ineligible for the expansion draft. And the 1 year we might actually win it because we're not eligible for the expansion draft. I've been talking to that up, and I just remembered we're not eligible. That hasn't been announced yet, I don't think officially, but if it goes the way it always is, because we had Joe Samora taken in the expansion draft, we are not eligible for the expansion. Can we opt in to the expansion? Can we just say no, it's cool. Take one of our players, please.
With the expansion draft has changed into we force players on their team. It's like you have these 4 players now. That's how your roster is constructed. You don't have a choice. Sorry.
I do wonder if there is a team out there that would maybe look and say, look, we're not going to take this whole contract, but I almost do feel like Steve could be better with a fresh scenery. Just different atmosphere, different environment. I think you could see him, and honestly, if it goes the way a lot of DC players have gone, he could have a renaissance. I think it's going to depend on. Obviously, we know the stories of when Wayne played here. He and Steve are really close. I think that might keep him here. Maybe they can go to Steve and say, hey, is there any way we can renegotiate this contract where we can still, maybe we extend it, by a couple seasons, you still get your money, but it's, maybe backloaded again. I don't know if they even want to get into that. Who knows at this point? He's clearly overpaid from how the defense looked. It's tough. I think that's a tough situation for the team.
He's a player that's always required a really strong pairing, and he hasn't had one since Bobby Boswell, really.
Yeah, true.
So I think that the team kind of handcuffed him there a little bit, I think. But I would say if you could get rid of him, if you could find a way to do it, that'd be great. But I don't think you will. Russell Knaus, $515,000, a player that did not see the field very much. He did have some personal problems. He had a loss in his family that kept him away from the team a little bit. There was some injury issues, but I think even when fit, was not really a first choice for Wayne. I think you try to move him on if you can. That's a deep position.
That's a player. I think Russell, you're looking at potentially
or not expansion, but right.
Yeah. St. Louis maybe looking to see what they would be willing to pay. They're going to have the additional money. They're going to be looking that they're paying, by the way, I think over $1 million for their goalkeeper.
1.6 million. They're paying for 2 Bill Hamids for their goalkeeper.
So
not wise.
They're going to look for value. So I think maybe you could find that in both Steve Birnbaum and Russell Knaus.
Yep.
I think you could find that.
Sofian Jafal, $65,500. I think you keep. That's a bargain. He's not have a great season, but I think he's certainly a depth player for sure.
I think maybe you look at that option year and if you can, I don't think I'd be curious what the option is and how much the option is, but if it's high,
it's cheap. I think for a rookie contract like that, I think it's going to be pretty affordable.
Yeah. And I think you keep him. I think he showed some good stuff. And I think I'd be curious to see how he looks with another year under his belt and, a style that I think might actually suit him for how Wayne wants to play. And I think if you can find a role for him to fit in, I think he could do well.
Chris Durkin, $445,000. That's an interesting one because that's not his cap hit because he's on the under 22, and I don't know when that changes.
I think you get March
forever, right?
Yeah, I think you get March for that, and I think it continues throughout. I'll have to look at the under 22 initiative. I might Google that a little bit. Yeah, but keep.
Definitely keep.
By the way, saw him. He was in Richmond, walking around in Richmond. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
SC Lad makes a point that Jafal takes up an international roster spot. Certainly a consideration. And we'll talk about that again with another player here.
You gotta think he's close.
Yeah, green card eligible potentially.
You gotta think he's close.
To
green cards. Yeah.
Next one, Taxi Funtas, $1.6 million. Somewhat out of our hands. I don't think we have much to say about this. We're gonna skip this one. we're gonna keep going. Unless you want to, I assume you would like.
Yeah,
to skip that?
I
let's skip.
Honestly, yeah, let's skip.
Tyler Freeman. This was an interesting thing that came out today. Tyler Freeman was actually on the DC United roster technically and loaned to Loudoun United, he also led the team in goals, I believe. I think we're like 8. But they did that to keep him on his MLS insurance, which is pretty cool of DC United to do that. That's basically how they kept him there. They wanted to keep his benefits of the league. So I believe his contract is expiring. So bring him to Loudoun.
Yeah,
sure. Sounds great. Jeremy Garay, $65,550, played a lot for Loudoun. Keep. Jacob Green, $85,000, played a lot for Loudoun. Keep.
All these academy guys.
Yeah, why not? Sammy Gadiri, $84,000. This is an interesting one. I think you like him more than I like him. So would you keep him or?
I guess the question of he was sort of in that mold, I guess, of a wing back type of role. So maybe he doesn't fit. And I'm curious if he takes up an international slot. I think he does. I have to go back and look. But so in the sense, like, I think he is a decent option. I think the team still needs an upgrade there.
Sure.
I was not so down on him. I don't know.
Joseph Moore, for example, making $200,000 for Charlotte.
Yeah. I mean, compared to Joseph Moore, honestly, Joseph Moore has done nothing for Charlotte, did nothing for Charlotte all year. So I don't know. I like Sammy. I'd say if maybe you negotiate that option, maybe there's some room there. He's still cheap. And I think he was one of the few players I thought that showed semi decently this season.
Yeah. And if we're looking at
enough
this
to make me want to hold on to him.
And if we're looking at this realistically, many more of these players than we say go are going to stay because they're not going to turn over 14 roster spots anyway. Bill Hamid, $700,000. Goodbye, Bill. Thanks for your service. Brendan Hines-Ike, $417,000 guaranteed comp. Interesting player. Came back from a almost career-ending hip injury and then got injured again, broke his foot or ankle. I'm not sure which. I think it was ankle. What do we think? Keep. I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, if his contract's not up, I mean, I guess he just signed a new contract. So, I mean, honestly, he's probably a keep. But I mean, again, you talk about all these players. You talk about players like Russell Knaus, and now, I mean, we got to talk about Brendan Hines-Ike. He's been here 2 years and he has not played a full season. Yep. Like, he's picked up injuries, season-ending injuries, for that matter. In
a theoretical world where he's your starting center back, that's very affordable. But that is a theoretical world because he's never stayed healthy. So tough to say. Jackson Hopkins, 65-8. Keep. I would like him to go to Loudoun, actually. Based on I looked at his advanced stats, and he was like under 50% on every statistic. And I think that maybe he would do better. I think it was good that he got so much playing time on a horrible team because he got minutes in MLS that maybe he wouldn't on a good team. But I think his development will be very important, and hopefully he does not stagnate a la Griffin Yao, a la Moses Nyman, etc. But keep, I assume, yes.
Yes. Keep.
Yes.
Obviously.
Ola Kamara, free agent, $1.5 million.
Gone.
Yeah, gone. I think he'll do. He's going to score 9 goals for some team in MLS next year.
Yeah,
just guaranteed. John Kempen, $84,000.
Goodbye.
Ted Kudipietro, $65,500. Keep. Ravel Morrison, $917,000. It will be here regardless.
Yeah, he will be here
for next year.
Yeah,
and then likely gone.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Good for him. That was like when your old boss brings you into work and is like, hey, I need you here, and you're like, I don't really want to come here. Like, I'll double your salary. don't even ask questions. I'll take care of it for you. I think that's what happened there. Andy Nahar, $375,000. That's a keep. That's a bargain.
Yeah,
injured or no, that's a bargain. David Ochoa, $103,500, free agent. Hopefully he stays.
You're basically talking about swapping at least some of that Bill salary out because he wants to be paid big. So hopefully,
give him 550, 6. If we can get anything under Bill, I think that's a bonus in your hat. I think if you can do that, may not be able to. Chris Udoyatsam, 151,000. Keep or get rid of. I think he's got an option here. I think, is that right for him?
No, if he says
no,
you have free agent here.
Yeah.
See, I look at this and I say, like, I basically right now I think you've got you have Sammy Giroudi and you have Chris Odiatsum competing for the same role, basically. Like, which one do you keep? I feel like you keep one of those and you don't keep the other, so to speak.
Chris and double the salary. So if that comes into factor.
Yeah. So I mean, if they want to go in and pay for him, I mean, I feel like both were pretty much the same. So I think maybe, unfortunately, I think for Chris Odiatsum, I think, it goes. I'm not sure keeping one or not keeping the other is going to like drastically change this team's fortunes.
It will not.
So I guess I look at this and I say, well, Sammy Giroudi is still, on an option year, which will probably be a little bit cheaper.
Yep.
And you keep him around and you open up keep around and you open up other roster opportunities. So
the tough spot there, I believe this is Chris's best year by far. And it's first chance to play 90 minutes. And he, I think, showed decently well. But to your point, he did not make the team better. He's a player that you do not want to start. So if you're not going to have him start, and for depth, you got to save money somewhere. So I think that's a shout, particularly on a free agency year. Victor Paulson, $863,000.
He's here.
He's here clearly, and also his salary will go down next year. It was front loaded. That's why he's a DP. It will go down, I believe, dramatically next year. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's the case. Adrian Perez, 89,513.
Goodbye.
Scored, I believe, no goals for DC United.
I don't think he played it all this year. I picked up an injury.
He did not. Broke his foot twice.
Yep.
Donovan Pines, this is a good one. $152,000. He's on his option year. Goodbye. And let's talk for a second about why that is. We looked at his statistics and sort of how they compare across the league. He is fantastic at everything that requires him to be tall and strong, and very bad at anything that requires soccer skills, like passing or anything with your feet. Like bottom 1, bottom 5, bottom 10 in the league in all those statistics. He's not going to learn how to be a good soccer player with good coaching all of a sudden at 24, 23, whatever his age is. He's been a professional now for a while. I think that who he is who he is, and I think that's not good enough anymore.
I think, honestly, I think you're talking about a guy that I think could drop down to USL and actually be like a dominant defender. If I'm being truthfully honest here, I think he potentially this contract. I don't think he'll have anyone else really maybe all that interested in him. Maybe another MLS team takes a flyer on him looking for some depth options. But I could see a USL team saying, look, your body and your physicality is all you need. You're not going to be facing, Paul Arriola every week. You're going to be facing, Corey Herzog. That's League One. So you probably won't drop that far, but you're going to be facing much lower talent. I think
Dane Kelly.
Yeah. Dane Kelly. I think you can drop down a level and he could be successful. So
yeah. Here's a funny one. Nigel Robertha, $622,000.
Yeah.
Did not feature very often for Wayne. Was injured some of the time. Also just didn't play a coach's decision quite a bit.
I think you're talking a 500K sale abroad is what is in his future at this point.
He can go back to Bulgaria.
Yeah.
We'll give him a half price deal. Here's another one. Martin Rodriguez, $597,200.
Like beginning of the year, I would have said it. He looks okay. I mean, I think I would like to see us get a designated player to fill that role, but he looks fine. And then as the season wore on, it was just worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
And he wasn't 90 minutes fit for 8 games. He would always play 45 minutes. He couldn't stretch it. I don't know what they can get out of. I don't know how much is guaranteed. I saw somewhere on FootMob, I believe, that it was just a 1-year contract. 1 year guaranteed, expiring in 2023. If they can get out from this contract, I would do so, because that position is going to be, pivotal. Mm-hmm. That service that he was supposedly giving is important. So if you can get out of that, I would do that. Next up, Rafael Romo on $285,000. I think you might keep him as a backup. I think you might.
Yeah.
Because I think he might actually be better on a team where the defense is better, and maybe also if he's not asked to be a sweeper keeper.
Is Zamata the new guy they just signed?
Zamudio is under contract. I think that's your third.
I
He's
think
young.
I think I think honestly that's your competition between
You
second
think
and
so?
third. I think that's your competition.
Yeah.
And I think whoever wins out in preseason is going to determine whether Rafael Romo is still here.
Because the international spot's a problem, right? But
Mhm.
the price is good. The price is not so bad. Although for a backup, 285 is a little high, probably.
I think he is a guy. He is a guy though that I think you can. I would not be surprised actually if they have him through preseason. They see what they have. You know, if it's David Ochoa, there's some other guy who's going to be the number one. They see who they have between the new guy they signed and Rafael Romo, and if they go to him and say, "Look, you know, if there's a lot of talk about Zamata being really good for Loudon, like he showed really well. So if he shows really well in preseason, and they think, you know what, we think this guy can be the number two, and Rafael Romo takes up an international slot, and I think you look at it and you say, I think they could find a loan somewhere. I think they could find something. I mean,
So
this
maybe
is
John Kempen stays. Maybe John Kempen
maybe,
survives. So it's quite possible. Gasu Samake, $84,000. I would love to see him on a full season loan to Loudon where he's not taking up a roster spot.
yeah. I don't know if he stays though. I think at this point, I think there's some guys here that you're going to start talking about mutual termination. He would be one of them. Rafael Romo also, I think, could be mutual termination on a contract. I think that could be the most amicable way to end all of this, is just to say, nope, we're done here. I think a lot of these guys that we see under contract, I think you're going to see several of them agree to some mutual termination. The one buyout I think could happen is Taxi Fontas.
Yep. Hayden Sargis, 65.5. He is gone. He was signed to be a center back in a 3-back system that we don't play, and that's why he was loaned to Phoenix, where he starts every game. So goodbye.
Yep.
Drew Skundrich, 89,513.
Mr. Andy Sullivan.
Mr. Andy Sullivan.
Yeah, gone.
I think also gone.
Gone, but honestly, I will not be surprised if he's back. I will not be surprised at all if he is back. If he still got some appearances under Wayne. I think, yeah, I could see him. Not many. But
Certainly not as many as any other coach, but Hernan loved that man like nobody other than Andy Sullivan number one, and then Hernan number two, and who loves Drew Skundrich. Also, his parents are probably in the mix. Brad Smith, 591,250 coming off a second ACL surgery.
Goodbye.
Last spot here, Kamarni Smith, 85,444, taking up a roster spot.
If he gets a green card, keep him.
Or international spot. I thought he had a really good year. He turned it around from my perspective in a way that I did not think. I thought he was another lost draft pick that was just going to do nothing.
Here's the thing. I believe he played some times over at wingback.
Yep, he did.
At sort of how many times have we seen players, they come out of college, Graham Zusi, for instance, one who came out of college as a winger, converted to wingback, played well enough that, I'm not saying he's going to aspire to those types of levels, but I mean, if you can get a decent winger to learn the skill set to be a defender and can do decently in that, you can sort of shift that role, and then you become a threat on the attack when you kind of overload things and be very effective. We saw with Andy Nahar. He picked up the defensive really quickly. Obviously, for an MLS level, he played it at a youth level, and really became a very versatile player, and has really prolonged his career, probably longer than he really should be. Several players, DeMarcus Beasley being one, that shifted back. So we've seen this time and time again. I think Kamarni Smith could be that guy that shifts. Kind of maybe they looked and say, look, let's try to see if you can play this sort of wing back role. You're still going to get forward, but we're gonna it's either that or you're going to sit on the bench all season.
Right.
So
the Kamarni's role basically was, if we're down late, we'll bring you on, we'll change our shape, we'll lose a defender, and you'll play up more. He played wingback when we had a wingback system, and then I think that later he became like a straight winger. I'm more impressed than I thought I was going to be. He scored one goal, I believe. Maybe got at least one assist. So not prolific, but on a decent salary. And I think even if on the international side, the problem is going to be specifically for Wayne's roster construction, international roster spots are going to be key, because this man is not looking for the American player. He's looking in Europe. That's just where it is. That's the way it is. So that may be his cost, and that's the same thing for any other marginal international player. I wanted to talk about one sort of theme, and then we'll wrap up the show here. But it was a conversation that was being had on Discord and other places about the fact that this team is now spending money. Spending money on big players, spending money on sort of the meat roster player. Martin Rodriguez at 600,000, Nigel Roberto at 622,000. These are players that are middle of the roster players that are being paid decent salaries. If you look across the league, I didn't do a lot of time to like cross compare salaries across teams, but like big name players getting that salary, that's a common thing. The challenge here is that Dave Casper and Lucy Rushton are spending this new money, but I don't know if they're spending it well. I don't know if they're spending it wisely. I don't think you could say there's value for dollar on any of these players. So what, like just to pontificate on that, like that was the concern before was like, we can't compete because we can't spend money. And then it was, we have the money. So now we're starting to do that, but we still think we're going to be in the middle of the pack, so to speak. We're not going to spend like Atlanta, but we're going to spend more. And we're spending 8th, 9th in the league right now, if you take into account the very large salary of Christian Benteke. But what do you think about sort of that dichotomy where we're at now?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, again, I bang the drum beat all over about where this team, I mean, you look at this team spending big money on Benteke is big. I wish he had shown a little bit more so I could feel a little bit more positive about that. I mean, I think there's no question right now, early returns of this sort of Wayne Rooney build is that the money's not going to the right place. And it's now not just about, it's really, and it's always been this way. It's never about spending money. It's about, can you do it smartly?
Right.
Can you put together a roster that fits? Can you get cohesion in this team? And we've seen, time and time again, this team has been unable to do that. They've had little spurts where they've gotten some luck, like Wayne Rooney coming in and actually just wanting to be here. And I think there's some question, does Benteke really want to be here, or is he actually looking for a payday? And I think we're going to find out the answer to that question. I agree with you. I mean, again, it speaks again to, I still have no clue like what identity or what direction this team is moving forward. I mean, I know Wayne says we want to be a passing collective team, but I didn't see any other than maybe a couple times we tried to, play the ball around the box in the midfield, and we looked better when we weren't doing that, when we were moving the ball quickly and breaking lines. And so again, I really don't know. I really don't know what the direction of this team is. And I think that speaks to, I mean, they seem to be just kind of throwing money and saying, look, we're spending money. We're now on the charts when we talk about net spend.
Stop yelling at me.
And it's like, okay, well, that's, spending money is good. Like, you should be a club. You should want to spend money. But additionally, you also have to be smart about it. I mean, there are teams out there. Look at what Chicago did. They went out and got Shaqiri. They spent money this offseason, and it was no direction. No, I mean, I don't know if they even like asked Ezra Hendrickson, do you actually want any of these guys? And I mean, there has to be some sort of cohesion. Otherwise, you're just throwing money into a trash fire. And it's
the thing that we both struggle with is the fact that Wayne is here for a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this team is being built to win now, and there's no consideration really to the future. And as fans, that puts us in a very weird situation about this offseason. It's like, we're here forever and he's here for a year, and some of these players are here for a year. So it's win it all now. And then where are we at again? We starting from scratch again. Is Pete Shuttleworth going to stay? Is that the whole thing? Is Wayne's assistant being groomed to like take over, get his first head coaching job at DC United? That would at least be cool, because there'd be some continuity from strategy. I don't know. That's not planned. That's just sort of people having conversations. Anyway, that the problem is the team is being built. It's a very much building the plane while you're flying it situation. There's not sort of a holistic approach in how they're evaluating, because it changes by each coach. So horrible season. This sort of ends our season covering this team. We're going to take a break, a well-earned break, to not have to talk about this club until date TBD, but sort of as the roster takes shape, we'll have thoughts. The season starts soon, but not that soon. There's certainly going to be a break here. And I'm hoping, a month and a week on, we've heard something about Taxi Puntas, so that gives us an idea about what are we going to do. Our whole offense is still very much predicated on his existence and playing on it. If not, they've got to go back to the drawing board yet again. So, yeah, man, 2022, we can finally close the door on this awful, awful season / year.
Yeah, and hopefully, hopefully. I mean, I just hope next year's better. I mean, it can't get much worse, can it?
I think it will be better. It's just a question of, can we, reach the playoffs? Even that, it's funny because in a 1 year rack them all up, let's go for it. A first round loss, okay, cool. Ben Olsen used to give us that with Lloyd Sam. So thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you guys sometime in the future.
Vamos.